speak or?
Good afternoon, and welcome to the Rockville City Council candidate interviews. This is our fourth panel. This is meeting number 10-A, continued from this morning. Welcome to all of you. What we'll do is a 2-minute opening statement, followed by questions, 1, 2, 3, which I see you have. We'll mix up the order a little bit as we go around. Each one of the council members will have one of the questions to direct to you, and then we will end with closing statements. So we appreciate all of you being here. Ms. Griffiths, would you like to start with your opening statement?
Sure. I'm Cynthia Cuddy Griffiths, and I think you all know me. I'm a blogger. I've done Rockville Center and Rockville View. 10 years ago, the tables were turned when I did a candidate forum and interviewed 3 of you. I'm a Cub Scout leader. I'm Richard Montgomery High School's PTSA president, former chairman of the Human Services Advisory Commission, currently Traffic and Transportation Commissioner. And you also know me as a nonprofit professional. I'm the executive director of the DC Maryland Justice for Our Neighbors. I've lived in Rockville for 25 years. Both of my sons came home from the hospital to our house in Twinbrook. I can't possibly talk about everything I've done in this introduction, but I know you have a decision to make about the right choice for a city council vacancy, and I hope that it's me. I know that I'm knowledgeable. Other people have attended meetings, they might go to meetings, but for years I then wrote about them, explained about everything and all the issues to everyone in the community. I am passionate about communicating what is going on in this city and getting more people involved. I'm a community builder. Since my sons were young, at Ritchie Park Elementary School, I would invite families in to share about their heritage and always made people feel welcome and included, and that's a skill that I bring to the council. I'm innovative, always looking for new ways to do things. I mean, that was evident when, with a co-volunteer, we started Rockville Central Community Hub, and we used the technology at the time to start that blog and bring the community in, and then we switched it over to Facebook, which was also new technology, so always trying to be on the cutting edge and figure out new tools. So I bring that fresh new voice to the city council. And I really feel like we're a stronger community when more people participate. That's also a passion of mine. I believe I'm knowledgeable and I can jump right in. The history of any of these issues does not have to be explained to me. I'm very strong on budgeting, and I hope that you will choose and vote for me.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Fulton.
All right. Well, thank you, Mayor and Council. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. I want to explain why I'm sitting here. So, about 9 years ago, my wife and I moved to Rockville, and we specifically chose Rockville because of the walkability, the quality of schools in the area, the ample green space, and the availability of public transportation. We chose to stay in the area, and we've grown to love the history, the culture, the diversity, all the city has to offer. It's why I'm in Rockville. It's not why I'm sitting here. I wanted to give back to the community because I have 2 kids, Becca and Isaac. I see you watching at home. I want them to grow up in a city that is safe, that's tolerant, that's fiscally sound, and when they grow up and they have families of their own, I want Rockville to be an affordable and viable option for them and any other member of the community. So to take steps for that, I'm president of the Woodley Gardens West Civic Association. I was and still am a leader on the Carver School Coalition that blocked the relocation of the Shady Grove Bus Depot to our residential neighborhood, and you will be seeing my face and hearing my voice at the upcoming I-270 meetings as well. That's why I'm involved. That's not why I'm sitting here today. I thought about what I want in an elected official, and that's what we're doing here. And it's not about who might have the best resume, the best backstory, or who can turn the best phrase. To me, I want someone who not only has the big picture and the vision, this is a 9-month gig. I want someone who I can trust to make logical, sound decisions on behalf of the community. That's why I'm sitting here today. I want someone who's willing to do their homework. I want someone who isn't afraid to ask questions, and I want someone who isn't afraid to find solutions, particularly if it's not the solutions they thought they were looking for. I want someone to represent me who is not afraid to speak their mind, but also who is willing to listen when others speak theirs as well. I want someone who is respectful of history and tradition, but willing to follow new ideas. And the last one might be particular to me. I want someone who has a little bit of fun while they're doing it as well. So I looked in the metaphorical mirror and I said these things out loud. And that's why I'm here today, because I can be that person that can do these things for the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Callistine.
Hi, folks. It's good to see everyone again. I hadn't considered doing this initially, but as time got closer, I thought, boy, this is a great way for me to get back involved with the city. I've been involved with Rockville for a number of years in a number of different positions as a planning commissioner, cultural arts commissioner, College Garden Civic Association president, I mean, a bunch of things. And what I've come to love about Rockville over the years is I always call it the small city with a hometown feel. It was something that we came up with when we had the Rockville Summit a number of years ago. And it's because it's a balance between a growing urban type community and a quiet, livable, walkable bedroom community. And I want to see that maintained. I want to see the city grow, but I want to see the city stay livable, workable, friendly for individual families, small families, and I want it to be a place people can call home. And so that was kind of what drove me to come out of the back room and back into the fore. What I would like to see is I'd like to see this city, it needs a bit of a kick in the pants about building its business community. We've had a lot of things leave, a lot of things, like Rockville Town Square is struggling. We have to find ways to encourage that and get that stable. But also I want to make sure we don't turn our neighborhoods into infills and, condos and, start building out the density that we don't want there. There's a balance that we want to strike with the city. There's, like I said, the residential, there's the urban. And my time here would be spent trying to build that balance, trying to build that livability that makes us proud residents of the city. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Mr. Maravella.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Scott Maravilla. I'm an administrative judge for the federal government and a mediator as well for the federal government. I am starting my 6th year of total service on the Board of Appeals, second since my reappointment last year, which I thank the Mayor and Council for reappointing me. Service is very important to me. I have served as doing pro bono legal work in support of firefighters with after 9/11. I've served in multiple capacities on bar associations, including chairing the Board of Appeals Judges Association. I applied to the Board of Appeals because I thought it would be a good fit for my legal skills and temperament, as well as my love of deliberative decision making and working with others. I am applying for City Council for similar reasons, not only because of the skill set fit, but also one of the things is I am a lifelong learner. And I learned so much from the people I work with and the environment I'm in. On the Board of Appeals, I've learned a lot about our community, about zoning and city planning from my colleagues on the board, the other board members, my colleagues in the city staff, and the citizens who appear before us. And one of the things I see is a similar opportunity serving on City Council. The opportunity to work with others and the opportunity to listen and communicate with our citizens, my fellow citizens, as well as going from being a sort of law interpreter to law maker, policy maker. And one of the things that I always highlight is that Sandra Day O'Connor was a state legislator and always highlighted that experience as influencing her when she did her judicial decisions. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sugg.
I'm Stephen Sugg. I live in East Rockville, and I'm a father of 3, and I'm a husband. And we moved to Rockville in 2014 early when my wife was pregnant with twins at 5 months. So we moved here. My wife is pregnant with twins, and I was in the final stages of my doctoral work at the College of William & Mary. My wife was starting a new job, so if you haven't seen me at a lot of civic meetings the last few years, we were raising a 2-year-old and twins. But in that time, I've done a lot of civic engagement, and I remember watching the Rockville mayoral debate a few years back while pushing my kids in a stroller. And so some of us who are civically engaged aren't at this table all the time because our family commitments keep us away. With that said, I do now work part-time, so if I were to get this position, I would be able to take it on and devote the ample time to the position, which I've heard a lot of folks say is very important, and I agree with that. But I've ultimately spent my career at the intersection of community development and education, and both are highly relevant to this. When I've heard us talk today about affordable housing, about education, about school boundaries. That's what I've done, and that's what I've trained in. I have a degree in education policy, planning, and leadership. I ran for the Board of Education, and I understand these issues locally, but I also understand the national best practices. We talk about affordable housing, walkability. I've been on the National Coalition for the Community Development Block Grants. I fought for capacity building funds through HUD and USDA. And I've worked often across the country in 26 states in the poorest American communities, from the South Bronx to struggling tribal communities. And I've seen, when doing that, I've seen how much you can do in communities without a modicum of Rockville's resources. And I've learned much from these people. I've worked alongside the country's best community developers, the country's best educators, and I've learned much from that. And I want to bring this experience to Rockville, and I'm excited to do that. And ultimately, I bring ideas and energy, but I also bring the humbleness to where I know that in a 9-month appointment, I need to listen, and I need to learn, and I need to jump right in. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we're going to turn it, perfect timing. We're going to turn it over to Councilmember Virginia Onley for the first question. And I just should have said for the record that Mr. Harold Hodges sent us a note that he would not be able to participate today, so that's why he is not on the panel for those of you watching from home.
Okay, the first question is, how will you protect our neighborhoods? And does it matter which way we go?
However you choose.
Ms. Cotty Griffin, do you want to answer that one?
Sure. I think there's 3 ways that we probably can protect our neighborhoods better. Obviously, it's code enforcement. I know there recently been a little bit of some reorganization going on in that department, but I think they are very responsive, and they do go through the city. So I hope that there'll be a lot of improvement there. I think for stop signs and crosswalks there are a lot of places so we can improve our neighborhood, protect the people living in the neighborhood by maybe having better ways for cars to know. Our neighborhoods were built, and often, when you come to a T, or there's only a stop on one side and not the other side, that maybe there needs to be a reevaluation of those situations. And, if there are school bus stops, maybe there should be crosswalks. And a lot of residential neighborhoods don't have crosswalks painted on them. You can just cross as long as there are no stop signs on either end. You can cross anywhere between. So, but maybe there needs to be more designated spots. I also I think we need to protect our neighborhoods by making sure that our housing is not getting overcrowded, because I think a lot of houses, maybe on the east side as well as the west side, people are renting out. Other extended family members are living in the houses, and they're becoming very overcrowded, and some streets are becoming very overcrowded. So the solution to protecting our neighborhoods is actually building the housing that we need to build closer to the metro transit stations. And, I just had a friend from East Rockville say to me, everyone's talking about, building in this intense building around the metro stops, but I live in East Rockville, and I think we need to protect that side of the metro station and those single family houses there, and the building needs to be on the other side of 355. So that there isn't overcrowding and there is affordable housing, so people don't feel like they need to team up and be living in the same house. So those are, I think, the main ways that I would protect our neighborhoods. We're very good on monitoring all the traffic studies. Being on traffic and transportation, I know that we do a good job of that.
Thank you. Mr. Fulton?
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I want to piggyback on what you just said and what several other people before me here today have said regarding smart growth, concentrating development around metro stations to avoid overcrowding our neighborhoods. I think that is a simple and logical solution, part of the master plan. I'm going to table that because that's a topic upcoming in another conversation. When I think about protecting our neighborhoods, I want to tack towards safety a little bit. I think people want to feel safe and protected in their neighborhoods, and I think by and large Rockville is a fairly safe and protected community. I come at this from 2 angles. I'm big on safety as regarding walkability and accessibility. I walk everywhere. I'm visually impaired. I do not drive. I have not driven a car in 10 years. In about 10 more years, I probably won't have much functional sight left. So for me to feel safe in my neighborhood, I want to make sure that there's adequate lighting. I want to make sure that there's adequate crosswalks, like you just said. I want to make sure that sidewalks connect to major roads. These are things that I think will protect the fabric of our neighborhood and make our residents feel safe within our neighborhoods. The final point I want to stress with regard to that is, as president of Woodley Gardens West, we had a great conversation with the Rockville Police. Corporal Ken Matney's our community outreach guy. He's awesome, comes to our community meetings, and gives very reasonable tips like, if you see something, say something. We say it all the time, but if something seems amiss in your community, make a phone call, and that could be a piece of a puzzle to a much bigger thing. So those 3 points, I know that the neighborhood protection we'll get into a little bit more with the master plan, but from where I stand with regard to community outreach, working with our police, feeling safe in our neighborhoods, all to me wraps around that sort of cocoon of how to protect our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Calistine?
Okay. I guess there's really 2 parts to that question. One is keeping people safe from crime. The other one is keeping people safe from harm. I think keeping people safe from crime is fairly straightforward. We're a relatively safe city overall. We do not have a high crime rate, but there are, still things that happen. And I think increasing awareness, increasing common sense practices for crime prevention. A lot of crimes because people don't lock their cars. Okay, just lock your cars, lock your doors, do the common sense things, and that will, I think, go farther to keeping people safe from a lot of the crime around here than others. Another one is keeping people safe from harm. As we've been talking about, there's a need for signage, the need for crosswalks, and on the other hand, there's the need for enforcement of some of those things. There's a lot of problem with jaywalking in this city. I drive down the street and people dart out in the middle of the road from me, and as much as vehicles need to be aware and obey the rules, pedestrians need to be aware and obey the rules. And I think we need education and enforcement on both sides. We need to stop people from driving through the crosswalks, and we need to stop people from crossing in the middle of the street. I like your idea of improved lighting in neighborhoods for people to feel safe walking at night. And that's about all I can think of at the moment, so thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Marvella?
Thank you. Taking a more broad definition of protection, I think you can look at it at the micro level and a more of a macro level. On the micro level, they're just small things. Some neighborhoods have four-way stops that appear to be four-way stops, but in actuality have a throughway. At places where sometimes you have near accidents, something I would like to see people study. I've seen changes made in my community in some of those areas. There's also just generally the observations and keeping up with safety in our parks. For example, and I say this by example because it's something I plan to call in, I noticed in the King Farm Park there's a tree planted or tree very close to the playground so that the swing sets are used as a way to climb up and climb into the top of a tree. Other things on kind of a macro level, one of the things I've learned on the Board of Appeals is the need for balance. We want our neighborhoods that a lot of which have very unique characteristics and are very tight communities, and want the growth to be such that we don't lose that we still have conformity and use, as well as on the macro level that we maintain affordable housing for people, that when we do have growth that we also have balance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Sugg?
Sure. I look at a lot of what I do professionally on Capitol Hill and across the country. We talk about building sustainable neighborhoods. And to me in Rockville, that means protecting neighborhoods like mine where there is true diversity. And it's more than one race, it's more than one culture, it's multiple languages and multiple nationalities within a stone's throw of my house. And how do you protect that? Well, it's not easy. You all know that. But one of the first things you can do to protect that, and one thing I think we could do a little bit more, both in the county and in the city, is leverage outside resources. I've spent a lot of my career working at the intersection of public-private partnerships to build low-income neighborhoods, and it's getting more and more these days at the urban level also to maintain affordable housing and prevent too much gentrification in some neighborhoods. And you do that if you bring in outside resources, you bring in outside investment, big banks, big foundations, and you leverage that with local knowledge, local can-do spirit, and some public financing. And that's a really good way to build some great sustainable neighborhoods. And I think Rockville, with its civic infrastructure, with its good bond rating, with so much civic energy, can really do more in that regard. And that's a really good way to preserve and protect the neighborhoods that we have, both economically and beyond. Finally, I'm also a big proponent nationally and locally of arts. And the arts can do a lot for neighborhoods. It's more than public art. It's arts processes. I'm proud to see us doing placemaking. I've written 3 National Endowment for the Arts grants recently, and that's really important for neighborhood vitality. And finally, we cannot talk about healthy neighborhoods and protecting them without understanding the role of schools to neighborhoods. My academic research is on place-based education. I understand that successful, healthy schools and neighborhoods are intertwined. I would encourage MCPS to do much more to put the classrooms outside. The best classrooms going forward will not be between 4 walls. And we've got to get to that realization locally and nationally, and Rockville can help lead the way in that. That's important to me.
Thank you.
Councilmember Feinberg, would you like to ask the second question?
I would be glad to. And let's start out this one with Mr. Calistine.
Okay.
And then we'll go here. Housing is Scott Maravilla. Sorry, Mr. Calistine.
Oh, I can hear you.
Mr. Caravella, Mr. Sugg, Cindy, and Mr. Fulton. Okay?
Okay.
Then the question is, and if you need it repeated, please just put your hand up and I'll be glad to repeat it again as we go through. How would you go about studying and making decisions about Rockville's master plan and zoning ordinance? And Mr. Calistine, if you don't mind
Okay.
going first.
No, I don't mind going first at all. This is kind of, when I was on the planning commission, I got to work in the Pike plan, so I have a pretty good feel for how the planning process takes place. It's a studied, measured, academic but messy process that involves a lot of differing opinions, a lot of consensus building, a lot of balance making. I would try to preserve, I keep going back to this, but it's important to me. I would try to preserve the balance of the city. I would try to preserve the neighborhoods. I would try to preserve the single-family nature, the homestead feel of Rockville, but at the same time, make sure that we grow in ways that keeps our economy vital. We keep the property tax base up from business, and we build the urban nodes that that are the trend for all current urban development. I think as you look at an overall plan for a city, you have to realize that you can't fix every part of it. You're not going to optimize the city by optimizing all its individual pieces. There are going to be some inefficiencies in the overall plan, and you have to figure out what those inefficiencies are and how you can live with them. I mean, I don't know what they might be at this point, but you go through and you find out that, for instance, you can't control traffic in this area, and that's bad. Well, maybe that's the price we have to pay to have, the better neighborhoods here and better school area there. So I would enjoy the opportunity to dig into that, to argue it, to build on it, to get your opinions, and to come to a consensus that we can all agree with. I guess my overall plan would be holistic. Look at the whole city, what's best for it, and work from there. Thank you.
Perfect timing.
Okay.
Thank you very much,
Bye.
Mr. Maravilla.
Thank you. Actually, this question goes really to what I was saying in my opening statement. Like, of all the choices of service to our city, why my interest in the Board of Appeals and serving on City Council? And it goes to taking problem solving and approaching it like a judge, like a board member, which is very collaborative processes. I would first rely a lot on my experience on the Board of Appeals in terms of my starting point on substantive knowledge on the ordinances, on zoning, the master plan, and also being able to look at them from the perspective of someone who's a sort of interpreter of those and kind of projecting effects of different proposals. I would read all of the drafts and information I have, study them meticulously, so I would have the full information in front of me. Next, which is, like I said, the thing that I enjoy the most of any kind of service and kind of being on any board and would enjoy in City Council, the consultation part. I don't believe in making any kind of decision shooting from the hip or kind of decisions on my own point of view at all times. I enjoy engaging with the other members. So the ability to engage with the mayor, the rest of the council on your opinions, to engage with city staff, and really understand all the different points of view and interests of our community. A lot like as a mediator I do with parties, bringing underlying interests together to kind of figure out what the best solutions are. Also from there, very important, and one of the things, like I said, I really enjoy the Board of Appeals, is the testimony of our citizens, my fellow citizens, when we have public forums. Those expressions are extremely important to me because there are things that people see in their own communities that I might not see, or things that might not jump out to be on a piece of paper. I'm always impressed with the fact that you have to have that level of interaction. Our history is fraught with Bobby Kennedy really changing a lot of his opinions on the war on poverty from his own visiting the Mississippi Delta to William F. Buckley Jr. Supporting the Panama Canal treaties after visiting Panama. So that is a very important key to decision making. From there, it comes down to making informed decisions based on the striving for that balance. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sugg?
Sure. The inner policy wonk in me loves white papers. I would dig into the data, and I have to an extent already, about what Rockville has done, and their city staff and others have done great work, and I respect that, and I would look at that, of course. But I've also seen throughout my career in advocating for federal programs or trying to get people to understand what goes on in neighborhoods across the country, there is no substitute for seeing, touching, and feeling. I've taken loads of congressional staff and Southwest Airlines to the South Bronx or to LA or wherever it might be, and I've seen minds change and perspectives change by simply touching and feeling. And so as a city council member, I would promise, I'm a runner anyway, and I got a new bike just now, I would promise to run every neighborhood on foot. And I do that when I visit other cities too. There's no substitute for that. You get a feel for things. And you really, if you want to think about master plans and zoning ordinances, being there, seeing it from the neighborhood perspective is invaluable. That is a very good use of time. Secondly, I would utilize city staff. So oftentimes I've seen, especially in Rockville, we have great staff. These people have been immersed in these issues from day to day. As a governing board member, I want to tap their talents, tap their expertise, and ask them what they're seeing and take that into deep consideration because it's their job to be into this every day. And I would look at that very closely. Third, I would bring in national best practices. What we do here is important, but also it intersects. From my house, I can be in Silver Spring. I can be across the county really soon. So we have to see what's going on nationally and beyond our borders here in Rockville, whether it's Gaithersburg, Silver Spring, wherever it might be. We have to view these issues as part of a bigger picture. Our planning and zoning matter, but we're part of a bigger system here. We have to understand the ecosystem that we live in. And finally, we have to be flexible. We can't predict the future that well. And I think with any kind of master plan or zoning, we have to realize and be humble enough to realize that we have to be flexible in implementation because things do change. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Cody Griffiths?
I'd first like to say how important I think the master plan and the zoning ordinance is. Before my husband and I bought our first house in Rockville, we got a copy of that document because we wanted to know exactly what was planned for our neighborhood and the rest of the city. And I know how important it is and needs to stay that important. I have loved the start of this process. I have loved Rockville 2040. I thought the staff and long-range planning did an excellent job with the public hearings, the public meetings, and all the boards and all the information. It was done in a much more interactive way with the stickies and the going and the sharing and each department being there. And it was a great opportunity for everyone to come up with that vision and what they want to see in our planning and our zoning going forward. I was on the Water and Sewer Committee because there weren't very many people that wanted to be on that committee, and I was willing, of course, to step up and serve. I'd done Rockville University and been to the water treatment plant, so I was all in with the staff in doing that. But I'd like to see the process going forward be more like that, like what we had up in VisArts, and be more interactive. Yes, you're going to need your traditional hearings, I know in the past, I think they had the documents laid out on long tables when they redid the zoning, and people would walk around the room and look at it. But what we've come up with since then has been much more interactive and much more manageable. Normal people don't know all the technical terms, so I've always been that person that's been able to explain it and kind of make it simple and really make people understand what the repercussions of each of those decisions will be. If we adopt this policy, this is what it's going to mean for your neighborhood. So I think once we start getting drafts and redrafts going, they need to go to the commissions, particularly like traffic and transportation, which I serve on. We need to have as many people in smaller groups discussing and thinking about all those repercussions for what that zoning will mean, and the neighborhood associations participating, and then having those more traditional public hearings as well.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Fulton.
Thank you very much. In a word, and this has been said before, the answer is balance. We're not going to start from a point of equilibrium, but I think the role of mayor and council in this process is to find the give on either side so that we reach that point of balance. It starts for me with the neighborhoods. I am currently part of the PA4 neighborhood area plan team that is reviewing, in anticipation of the Master Plan 2040, the areas of West End and Woodley Gardens West. We all come to it from a little bit of a different perspective in terms of history of the neighborhood and where we think the neighborhood ought to go. But one thing we all have in common is we are fiercely passionate about our little neck of the woods. And every neighborhood here in Rockville is as well. And our job in that committee room is to work with staff to identify our piece of the puzzle, to give it the definition and the shape that it needs to be. Now, beyond once it leaves our hands, it's everyone else's, including mayor and council's, responsibility to make sure that all of the pieces fit together so that they make a square and not some sort of bizarre shape. I think that requires a lot of back and forth. I think once neighborhood plans go up for review, I think the city, both staff and the mayor and council, need to review things on a holistic level and go back to the neighborhoods. And when we present in our neighborhoods our plans, we shouldn't just present, here's what we're going to do in our neck of the woods. It's here's what we're going to do in our neck of the woods, and here's everything else, so that everybody can see how the master plan fits together. I think that we're very proud of our neighborhoods, but sometimes we're a little bit insular. And for me, it's always helpful to see the big picture, how what happens on this side of Rockville affects this side of Rockville, affects north of here, south of here. And I think it would be very beneficial, not even in big, wide city meetings, but when we go to community meetings, to show how the little piece of the puzzle fits into the big picture. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Councilmember Prashela.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So we're going to do it in this order. It's going to be Mr. Calistine first, then Mr. Fulton, then Mr. Maravilla, then Ms. Cotty Griffiths, then Stephen Sugg. Just to give you a little different order. So the third question. Where do you see the city of Rockville in 5 years, Mr. Calistine?
In 5 years, I see us being the same as we are, only better. I like Rockville. I like the way it is. I like the people. I like the overall community. But I think we can be better than what we've done. I think we are in the process now of doing that, with reviewing the master plan and the zoning ordinances and trying to figure out how we can grow this city in a mindful way. I think that we're one of the most diverse cities in the country. I think we were 11th or something in the nation as far as diverse cities. I think we need to capitalize on that. I think we need to encourage that. I think we need more diverse representation in the city boards and commissions, even on the mayor and council. You know, we're a fairly homogenous group of people right now, and I think we need to expand on that. We have a very growing and vital Asian population in this city, as evidenced by the explosion of Asian restaurants, the Spot, and all those other things. They're a growing population, and they're not vocal. And I think we need to encourage them to be part of the city, and I think we need to encourage them to take a more active role. So in 5 years, I would hope to see this, the city's representation at all levels, a little broader base of demographic type, if you will. I would like to see an expansion of schools, because that would let us have a safe expansion of homes. That would involve a lot of negotiation with the Board of Elections, because they make those decisions, not us. But we have to find a way to work with them and convince them of the needs of the city rather than the needs of the county as a whole. I would see this city with parks. I'd see it, like I said, I'd see it a lot of the way it is. I see it better, and I see it as home.
Thank you, Mr. Kallenstein. Mr. Fulton.
Sure. In 5 years from now, I see us moving forward. Over the past couple of months, there have been some big ticket issues in the city of Rockville, and they have been at times contentious and divisive. And I think that ultimately that's going to make us stronger. You can't get stronger if it doesn't hurt a little bit, whether you're talking about a physical workout or whether you're planning for the big picture of the city. I think that the conversations we had about APFS, I think the conversations we've had about Rockville Town Square, I think the conversations that we are having about community outreach and engagement are going to serve us very well in the near term and in the long term. So my great hope is that the 20 of you who don't get to sit up there, and myself, we all take these things that we're passionate about and continue to move forward with them. That we go back to our neighborhoods and we work on them. So what does that mean? I'd like to see, again, more smart, concentrated growth around our metro stations. I would like to see more advocacy on behalf of our students with the school board. I understand it's a very political issue. It requires things at all levels. But if I learned anything over the past couple of months, there are a whole heck of a lot of passionate parents, myself included, who just want great schools for their kids and all of the benefits that that affords down the line. So when I think about Rockville, I think about a place where I can walk with my kids to the stores that I want to shop at. I love Carmen's down the street. I'd love to see 2 or 3 more smaller local businesses just pop up near my house. That would be wonderful. And the last little bit of time, I read through the whole budget, and I'm not a numbers person. The one thing that stuck out isn't financial. There are 54 miles of incomplete sidewalks in the city of Rockville. So very specific goal that I would have in 5 years is that we reduce that number by half. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fulton. Mr. Maravilla.
Thank you. Based on my observations and experience with the mayor and council on the Board of Appeals and observing other boards and commissions, and working with city staff, I think we have a very strong commitment to our community here and a very strong dedication to public service that I'm happy to be a part of in my own capacity. And I think because of that, we will achieve the balanced growth we seek, have adequate public facilities and not overcrowded schools, that we will find ways that our neighborhoods will retain their unique characteristics, that we will have affordable housing, as well as getting traffic under control so it's not as crowded as it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Connie-Griffiths.
In 5 years, we will be about a year out from the first phase of Twin Brook Quarter being completed. There'll be the new development coming also along on Shady Grove Road. I hope that we will have advocated very strongly on the state and the county level for more funds for school construction, because in 5 years, Richard Montgomery High School is going to be at that really tight overcapacity figure that we've been looking at because of growth in regular single-family homes as well as new construction. I think that we're going to have a lot of innovations in the city. I mean, I'm going to see a thriving town square because I'm going to hope that a private owner, Federal Realty is a private owner, they find these new solutions. You see that there's a service coming in for vehicles where you drop it off and leave. But, you know, the trending with bricks and mortar is that most stores will be like a showroom, and you'll go in with your cell phone and you'll scan the item and it'll be shipped to your home, and then you could go out to dinner and have a drink in town square. But I hope that there'll be solutions, and we'll find that mix, and we will have the public meetings that finally get town square solved and to make that much more sustainable and to make it flourish. I think we're going to see new technology with our transit system too. I was on the task force for the county for microtransit in Rockville, and I'm going to see both our metro stations are going to have what I term, as I explain it to people, Uber buses, where you will have an app and you will call the bus and it'll come to a certain intersection, not a bus stop, and take you to some other place in that zone, a mile around Rockville Metro, a mile around the Twin Brook Metro, that these are things that are on the horizon, solutions that will bring our city up to this next step, to use innovative and technology in new ways, to make this, all those little problems that we have that we're struggling with, to make it all a lot better. I think we might see us having to go out into different communities. I know we had this with Flag Day when no one was attending, and then we put it in Town Square because that's where the people were. So if people that are from Asian countries are not participating in our process, why not we go to the Chinese school on the weekends?
Thank you. And Mr. Sugg.
I served on the University of Missouri Board of Curators during a recession, so it's great to get visioning right here, and I'll go into some vision too, but I also want to keep attention to the bread and butter and note my appreciation to the current mayor and council's attention to fiscal responsibility, to the bond rating, to infrastructure. Oftentimes in the role that I want to be in with the city council is that I understand that it's great to have these grand visions, but at the same time, we need to make sure the pipes are fixed. We need to make sure that the city trucks are updated. We need to make sure the police cars are updated and those sorts of things. And oftentimes those don't get you to the ribbon cuttings, but my kids, when they become a little bit older in Rockville, that's the kind of stuff that will matter as well. And I recognize that because times aren't always good. But to the visioning part, we talked about schools, school construction. I agree with you there, and I will be a strong advocate for reminding the Board of Education that when we think about schools, they're built for 50 years, but the classrooms are going to look a lot different. And I have very strong viewpoints on that based on what I've seen in Maryland, in my own academic research, and across the country and across Europe and other parts of the world where they're thinking about schools and education much differently. And I want to bring at least an element of that when we talk about school construction here locally. That's really important. Secondly, I want Rockville to be a hotbed of creativity and fun. I have seen in my own work over and over that if we encourage creativity, we encourage arts, that's great for economics. It's not just something that's fun to do, it's great for our bottom line, and oftentimes small investments can be very catalytic. That's important. Third, green space. Green space matters. I'm an advocate for health. I'm an advocate for getting the kids moving more and more. I do that nationally and locally. I'm in the legislature right now, we're working on that. That's really important. So we get the green space right, we get the infrastructure right, we get school construction right, we get health leadership right. All of that combines to lead to better conditions for economic growth. We can't just bring businesses here magically, but if we do these other things right, we can attract them with that formula I just gave you. And that's the best thing we can do in our role as mayor and council. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much for your answers to the questions. We're now about ready for 2-minute closing statements. I just want to say one thing. Mr. Kallenstein mentioned our placement in the diversity ranking.
Yeah.
In the country, we're actually the 9th most diverse city in the country, something that was just announced recently, which is a wonderful place for Rockville. Something gives us something to strive for to be better, but it shows we're working in the right direction.
Good.
So I tried to mix it up a little on closing statements, and Mr. Sugg, I don't think you've gone first yet, so I'm going to let you go first, followed by Ms. Cody Griffiths, Mr. Maravilla, Mr. Fulton. I'm sorry. Mr. Maravilla, Mr. Fulton, and Mr. Kallenstein last. So when you're ready, Mr. Sugg.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I will close and say that a lot of candidates have spoken about many of the same shared values and priorities. I will say if there's one thing that makes my application perhaps a bit differently is that, again, I have done this professionally across the country for 20 plus years. This has been my life's work. I've always had a bent towards public service, a bent towards the education, or towards the intersection of education and community development. And working with the best and brightest across the country who do this has given me invaluable experience that I am so excited to share locally here in Rockville. Secondly, lots of folks have talked very rightly about Rockville's diversity. That's something that I respect. That's something that's very, very important for us to recognize. And I have also demonstrated that across my career. I went and did my academic research out in rural Maryland in a very poor Appalachian community. My current work, what I do right now, I was a board member of the National Rural Housing Coalition, where we fight to bring housing and resources to tribal communities, to the very lowest income, the least among us across the country. I've done that in urban and rural. And so I've fought to empower the kind of diversity that we talk about here in Rockville. It's one thing to recognize it. It's another thing to have spent your life's work trying to empower the people who need to be empowered. And that's what I think of when I think of diversity. And finally, it's about the energy to do something when you have the office. I would come to the seat very humbly, knowing that there is much to learn, knowing that I can learn from other people. But I would also say 9 months isn't that short of amount of time, and I'd want to make a difference. When I was appointed to a position by Governor Mel Carnahan nearly 20 years ago in Missouri, he reminded me of Adlai Stevenson's words that when you have time in office, you don't know how long it's going to last, but do something while you're there. And I will not be bashful to get things done, even in a short-term appointment, because the taxpayers and the people who are putting us there deserve our best. And that's what I will do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Cody Griffiths.
Yes, well, I've enjoyed talking with my fellow Rockvillians here and appreciate everyone's insight on all of these issues. I've always written and shared information about Rockville's issues, about the budget, about planning. I feel like I'm very knowledgeable. When I was chair of Human Service Advisory Commission, I sat down with former city manager Scott Ulrey and went through the budget in line by line, understanding exactly how it works. I have a history. I don't have to have things explained to me. I'm a community builder, whether it's Scouts, it's school, or it's online. Yesterday I had over 110 presenters come into Richard Montgomery High School for our career day. I bring people in and allow them to share, and I would do that for City Council. I'm like those innovative solutions. I've talked today about some trends that I see in shopping, in transportation. I'm excited for Rockville's future. I love Rockville. My family has loved living here in Rockville. Both my sons work for the city of Rockville, the Swim and Fitness Center. This is our home, and it's very important to you. But I do make a promise to all four of you and everyone in Rockville, all the residents, the businesses, that I would listen to everyone's opinion. I would do my homework. I would read all the reports. I would consult the staff if I didn't understand something. I would do the absolute best job that I could to serve the city of Rockville, which has always been what I've done, as you can see, throughout my career and in all the volunteer work that I've done and all the people that I've helped. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Maravilla, sorry, Maravilla.
Maravilla, that's fine. Actually, I just want to thank the mayor and council for taking the time to meet with us today and all the other applicants. I know it's been a long day, I'm sure. Also, city staff in support of these interviews. And I know you're going to have a difficult decision ahead of you given all of the highly qualified applicants we have for this position. I also want to take the opportunity to thank my fellow applicants for their outstanding community service and commitment to Rockville, and wish all of you good luck with the appointments. So thank you.
Mr. Fulton.
Thank you as well, sir. I want to end today by talking about something that I have enjoyed. Since this vacancy was announced and I began to consider it a couple months ago, I did a lot of homework. I dug into the city's website. I walked through neighborhoods in Rockville I'd rarely been to before. I showed up at a ton of meetings, a lot of different events. What I enjoyed more than anything else was talking to my fellow residents of Rockville about local issues. I probably talked to 24 or more old friends and new in the process of pulling together my vision. The narrative that I submitted were my own ideas, but it was formed by speaking with those people throughout the city. So I found that I really like civic engagement more than I even thought. I mean, heck, my friend and I even started a civic happy hour, so I don't know what that necessarily says about me. Y'all are invited to the next one, and you guys are too, because we're all friends now. For all the talk about civic engagement and community outreach, for me, it starts at a grassroots level. It's one person talking to another. It's neighbor talking to a neighbor. It's one of the reasons I love the Woodley Gardens West Civic Association, and I love talking to my neighbors. I don't think I have to tell you that everyone has an opinion about local issues, whether they come out to the meetings or not. And they're all really well informed and real interesting. And learning from those people was something that I truly enjoyed, and it made me realize something about myself, that civic engagement isn't a priority for me. It's a personality trait. And as a city council member, that's something I will carry forward. Open lines of communication with all residents and city staff, listen to people, understand where they're coming from, and continue outreach with people I know and people I'm very excited to meet. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Kallenstein.
I've learned a lot today, so thank you, everybody. One of the things I always find exciting about working with the city and the city government is I come in every time and I walk out knowing more than what I came in with. And half the time my opinions have been changed. So that's one of the things that I enjoyed so much in the Planning Commission, and I would enjoy doing with you folks, is coming in there and kind of butting heads and working through issues and finding new perspectives, and then going out and have a drink afterwards. I mean, we're all in this together. We're all in this for the betterment of Rockville. Whatever our opinions or views on issues, we work them through. We come to an agreement. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. You move on. In my other parts of my life, I'm a stage manager for theater, and that makes me very good at dealing with tactical issues, with bringing people together, with getting decisions made, with getting problems solved, with getting things moving forward, sometimes in very aggressive time frames. But the whole goal, again, is we're all in this together. We all build, we all succeed together, we all fail together. And I'm very, very, very good at making sure people succeed together. When I was at the Planning Commission, the thing that struck me is everyone says, you know, they should do this and they should do that and they should do the other thing. And when I was part of the city, I realized I was one of they. Okay, and anybody can be one of they. I can be a they, and it is really your obligation to take some time and to take some part of your life and be part of they, to be the people who make a difference in your community and do things the way that you feel it should be done. And I would welcome, I would love, I would enjoy the chance to work with you and to work with the city and to be one of those days again and to help Rockville move forward to a much better future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all very much for your time today and your interest and service in the city. Next steps are that the mayor and council will do our lists. We're going to come up with 5 top choices to move forward into the second round of questions, which will be Tuesday evening from 7 to whenever. Probably 9, but you will be notified by email by the city clerk later today.
Okay.
So thank you all so very much for your time.
Thank you.
And when's the happy hour?
I'll be at Finnegan's in about 20 minutes if anyone wants to join me.
We all very much appreciate your time today and your comments and suggestions, so thank you.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate that.
Yes, yes, feel better. All right.